Wellness Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of Unapologetically Strong on WOVU 95.9 FM. And as every first Wednesday of the month, this is April, right? Every first Wednesday of the month, we got the one, the only, Steph Lewis. What's up?
Hi. Happy Wednesday.
What's good?
Happy Wellness Wednesday.
Wellness Wednesday. So what'd you do all last month?
Women's history stuff, you
like
know.
What?
No, I'm kidding. I did a lot. I feel like I made a lot of progress just with the business, just really focusing on building on my clientele and my network.
Okay.
Spending time with my kid.
Yes.
Let's see. We didn't go anywhere. Probably really needed to go somewhere. And
where would you go?
Well, I definitely want to go back to Medellin, Colombia. So that's big for me.
They got a lot of drugs there.
Well, that's not why I would go.
I like how you pause. I'm like, what?
Because I'm like, you always throw me off guard.
I'm sorry.
It's intentional.
Okay.
But yeah. So what else? I would go to west. I would go west.
West,
Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want like some desert vibes too.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to do more domestic travels.
Okay.
I'm always pushing international, but I really want to make sure I get to every single state in the U.S.
That's it. Alaska too?
Yeah, of course, especially.
Why especially Alaska?
Because I'm very curious about the culture there.
Why?
Because of the face you're making right now and all of our prejudgments around it. Let's start there.
What? Why you got to tell everybody? Well, yes.
Y'all should see his face.
I did. But it's I hear it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so.
I hear it's cool. You've been to where? What's the farthest west you've been?
I mean, I don't know if it's really west or what, but I feel like the furthest
Chicago
I've been was Dubai.
I meant America, but
California.
Okay. How'd you enjoy California?
Oh, a pre-homeless epidemic /
They've
movement.
always have homeless people like that.
Oh, California.
Like it went from Seattle on down.
It's wild though. It's a little wild. It's a movement. So I think this
What's
is the
the
last
movement?
time
Being homeless?
Yeah, they really feel they stand in their rights to choose that type of
To be homeless?
lifestyle. Yeah, they actually call themselves the unhoused. Yeah, like it's their right to be unhoused.
What? Who? I'm sorry. I know. Who is infringing on someone's right not to actually pay a bill? Who? Who seriously is infringing on someone's right to actually not pay a mortgage and what?
The community in Los Angeles, because it is very concentrated with the amount of tents. It can be a little bit invasive when you're driving and folks are constantly begging at your door, at your car window, and there's a discomfort and even just having your windows down. The freeway bridges,
Atlanta,
you know how we, like it's tent after tent after tent after tent.
Okay.
The utilization of trees on the side to hang draws.
I was just about to say that. You got your draws, your bras, you got your D's and your B's up. All right, I'm sorry.
Gosh.
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
He's on one today.
I didn't know it was a movement to have the right not to pay a bill.
Unhoused.
What is the? Am I being insensitive?
I am just trying to tell
Am I being
people,
insensitive?
I don't.
What's your belief?
I believe that.
Is this good radio?
This is all
I don't even know.
societal constructs that are ridiculous. So,
but you didn't answer. Am I being insensitive?
From your clinician identity?
Sure, whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I have to admit, I've never actually had an unhoused person. I've never actually worked with a.
Well, how could you build the uninsured?
But
unemployed.
If we're talking about college students, I've had those.
Yeah. One.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about, anyway, all right. So, because I can go on, I can go on this all day.
All right, folks. So today, what are we talking about?
We're going to talk about toxic parenting, which is, Is this part of the reason why people are unhoused?
Did you? How do we go from toxic parenting?
Because they're unhoused. Something went wrong.
I think we need to go to a radio break.
No. Okay. We just started.
Okay.
We only been 5 minutes in.
All right, we're here.
We gotta wait. All right, pull it back together. Right.
You.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll pull it back together.
There you go. Deep breath.
All right, so deep breath. So as you know, on Wednesdays, first Wednesdays of the month, we delve into a specific topic. So last month, we had the panel of therapists, women. So that was women in therapy, Black women in therapy. And so this month, we're going to look at this concept of toxic parenting. Now, I have to admit, this was not something that I chose, but I approve.
Yeah, I chose it.
Yeah, you did.
I did not call it toxic parenting.
What did you call it?
Parenting from trauma.
Oh.
So you registered it as toxic parenting.
I did.
But I think that the lanes it'll be important to differentiate just, reduce the energy, the judgment energy around toxicity in general, because toxicity is just a label that we put on behaviors that are derived from untreated trauma, essentially.
Yes.
When you break it all the way down.
This is where I separate. So
okay.
When I look at toxicity in any relationship, I think is any relationship that continues on without some type of resolution plan and accountability. So when I'm looking at toxicity, or I'm working with a client and they're dealing with toxicity, and I'm looking at it in a relationship form, any relationship, in my opinion, that comes back together without some type of resolution, working through, or some type of plan, I think has the ability to turn into toxicity, because we're still dealing with what's the word I'm looking for? Unresolved. That's the phrase.
Yes.
Unresolved struggles, right? Yeah. So you see parenting from trauma, I see toxic parenting. And I think we're going to be talking about the same thing.
Okay.
You don't believe?
I do believe. I just think that there is a preconceived notion around toxicity. And I think that in order to get those who are probably parenting in a toxic way, air quotes,
okay.
I think that we have to welcome them, to know, like, we're not judging that. We're not judging that some of the things we may discuss today will fall under the category of toxicity, but that's not like hashtag toxic Instagram judgment, but it's more so like, hey, there's some unresolved trauma that is floating around probably within you that isn't resolved. Same as you said earlier, that is bleeding into your motherhood, into your fatherhood, into your kinship care, that could impact your offspring and who they become in their adult life.
Yes.
And the trauma and the mental health issues that they may carry on in their adult life if you don't do the work.
Yeah. What was that last part?
Emphasis.
Okay.
No, because I just think, even myself, even as a clinician, I have some unresolved trauma that I've experienced, that I have noticed has come out in parenting my son.
Yeah.
In different seasons of his life and different seasons in my life. But the key is in the separation of it being toxic parenting is that I always go back and resolve and bring him along for that journey to humanize me as a mother and as a woman.
Is this gender specific?
No, I think it's across mothers, fathers, kinship care, boy children, girl children. Yeah. I think that it's people. Do I think that there's more of a cultural risk in our Black community? Yeah, because it all connects back to mental health that's unresolved in the Black community that we are passing on as legacy.
It's also interesting. You see, whichever T we're going to go with.
Toxic or trauma?
No. So I think you also see this across socioeconomic status, because this this concept of parenting, which has been around since you have a parent, since something have the ability to have offspring, this idea of how to parent, when to parent, and what to do to, when you parent, I think is definitely something that we as professionals, come in contact with constantly, right? Yeah. So to have a child, you do not need a license, but you need a license to drive. You need a license to, for the most part, carry a weapon. So there's so many things that parenting, encounters, right? Because it's first about your firsthand experience, then it's about your community, and then it's about what you've chosen to learn. And then unfortunately last is about the type or temperament of the child that you have, have helped birth. Yeah. Because one child does not catch all, right? That personality.
No. Each child needs something different. Too. Yeah. And at different developmental stages. So when we say, just for the people, developmental stages, that's about just the age of your child, where their brain development and their social development. And so I think not only is it that child's personality, but it's also that child's developmental stage and how they're internalizing the information. Yeah. What they need, how they being socialized in school, and taking that information or that approach to life that you have and applying it in those different environments. And
I like how you got away from, and I hope this was intentional, you got away from age more to brain development, because, wow, I'm going to need you to bring that back.
I'm keeping my reaction.
Right.
Because your age does not determine
absolutely
your maturity.
Maturity.
No.
And is so, look at a individual's development. We want to look at, how they're physically developed, how they're informationally developed, and then next you look at the age. Because far too often you open up a textbook and we look at some of these, we look at some of these others, and they talk about development. They look at specifically age. So by this age, you should be doing this. By this age, you should be doing this. By this age. And I think for those that are newer parents, it produces, those milestones produce more anxiety, which promote, right? Because when we're anxious, we're going to parent, or we're going to act in our natural brain. Yeah. Right? Not our, developed brain, to where if you have some type of trauma in parenting, you go with what you know. Yeah. And then you're going to move towards that. Or, let's be perfectly candid, we may move opposite to that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's okay to have those standards.
What standards?
Of developmental milestones. I just think we don't allow them to consume us. I think it's important that we don't dismiss them, because what big institution really leans into that developmental stage path?
What do you mean? Schools? Oh, well, yeah.
So we got to keep it in mind. Got it. You know what I mean? Like, even if it doesn't fit, because we have to try to keep our kids at the level that is expected of them. If you're going to drop them off at school for 7 hours plus a day, plus aftercare and before care, sometimes kids are out of the home 7 to 10 hours, 5 days a week. So we do have to push them to that standard. But I think when we're trying to get them to understand concepts of values and principles and lifestyle, we need to impress that upon them based on who they really are, without ignoring the standard that their 7 to 10 hour day is going to force them to meet anyway. Or just homeschool,
But even with homeschooling, there is some type of standard that you have to actually meet that is related to where you go to school at, or the state that you're in. True. So I think we play this catch-all game with pretty much everything, right? Our lifestyle in our community is an or community rather than an and. And when we look at the homeschooling, they still follow state, state, county, and city regulations. Yeah. So just because your child is homeschooled, it doesn't mean they don't have the same buffoonery as they have to deal with as it relates to academics of traditional school.
True.
So let's not do that.
All right.
We got you got anything else you want to say on that topic?
No, I think we can go to break.
We got to go to break. All right, so we're going to jump on a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about toxic/trauma.
Trauma.
I just say toxic now just to bother you. All right, this is WOVU 95.9 FM. Welcome back, WOVU 95.9 FM. This is Unapologetically Strong with Eric King and Steph Lewis.
Hi, back.
All right, so let's jump into what we are going to talk about today. So let's start off with the first T, which is trauma. So parenting from trauma at times is literally, how can I put this in a much simpler way? Is taking where you are in the current moment and reacting to an offspring who has or lacks a certain amount of understanding of what's going on. And so at times when we parent from trauma or when we react from trauma, we're pulling through all of our pain, our understanding, as well as our hurt in in the direction of the person in front of us.
Yes.
And in some cases, our non-reaction is also a trauma-based reaction as well.
Yes. Overcompensation.
Mm-hmm.
So just constantly appeasing, withdrawal, which is what you're describing, mm-hmm. right? Just no response at all.
Yeah.
And then overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just doing too much in the simplest layman term.
Yeah.
Just doing too much. The response is disproportionate to what's happening. But I also think some of the values and principles that we instill on our children from a mindset of trauma is also parenting from trauma.
Yeah.
So in that instance, instilling fear in mm-hmm. them, a projection of our own anxiety. I think that's dangerous because it can promote your child being anxious. So even as simple as when they say, let that boy fall, let that boy fall. That is fighting against your own trauma and fear of harm mm-hmm. on your boys, making sure that they have some type of desensitization and fearlessness, knowing what they're going to face in society as a man.
Yeah.
So let that boy fall, versus mm-hmm. coddling. Because that's your own fear or anxiety around when you weren't protected mm-hmm. as a child. So then you're over protective of your children, which harms them later too.
Well, let's set the stage. You have the child, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on beforehand. And so last month we had a doula here. And one of the things that she stressed is the amount of stress related to the concept of pregnancy. So we got this pregnancy, and whatever happened before, right? Whatever happened before conception, whatever happened after conception, all plays a part in once that baby is popped out.
Yes.
So if the mom has had, or if the family has had some type of trauma, right? Arguing back and forth, moving around, that plays into once the child is born, how that individual is going to parent. So a lot of times, trying to find out whether a person grew up in a trauma household or once they were pregnant, right, and had this opportunity, to have a child if that trauma was developed. Have you seen the same thing?
Oh my gosh, yes, epigenetics. That's what mm-hmm. it's called, epigenetics. So that DNA imprint at conception from the mother mm-hmm. onto the child can actually go back even past that mother because her DNA was imprinted by her mother.
Right.
And her mother's DNA imprint, mm-hmm. Like it goes on and on. So it's really the strand of DNA that is being passed along mm-hmm. has trauma imprinted on it in general for epigenetics. So then on top of that, if a mother is abused during pregnancy,
right,
then however she manages those emotions of that abuse could be imprinted onto the child's DNA as they're forming and developing in the womb. So then that child, despite environment, mm-hmm. despite nurturing, right, mm-hmm. their nature has already been impacted by that historical trauma.
Yeah. I think the next part, so once the child has been born, this child does not come out with an owner's manual.
No, I wish. I wish. Can I get one?
There is no owner's manual, right? There's a lot of books, but there's no owner's manual. And
those are barely written for our population.
Right. And far too often when I run into or I connect with a new parent or, whether it's in the practice or just flat out, is that I hear a lot of knots. And one of the things that I know is me as a parent, when I became a parent, I had to let go of my knots. So the knots are, whatever happened to that individual as they were parented. They grew up and say, well, I'm not going to be this, or I'm not going to do this, or I am going to do this.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we create this pile of knots, or what we are going to do, without realizing all of those can go out the window the moment that child shows their personality. Oh, and so now
the whole parenting approach, throw it away.
Right. So
I've done that
because this child did not come out with the owner's manual, and we've already been parented. Right. Yeah. Every human has been parented in some way. And we have all these preconceived notions of what we're not going to do. We've already set ourselves up as parents for failure.
Yeah. Because we're attaching to a style that makes us comfortable, that makes us feel empowered, instead of attaching to our child and attaching to who they are and what we learned from them at each point that they grow.
Right.
And having that inform how we parent. Or we attach to how our mamas did it. That's how these kids raised different.
That's how
Well, these kids are different.
Yeah.
And it's not to dismiss that, but the kids are different. And it's not to dismiss other ways that we've parented. But the reality is my grandma raised me. She was born in the South. She was a part of the civil rights movement in Alabama. And I am the child that was already old enough to register when the internet happened. Right. We had those big old Verizon phone. What was they called? Cellular or something?
It was cellular phone.
Cellular.
Whatever they called it.
Oh my gosh. What was Verizon before it was Verizon?
It was American.
It was these big goofy phones or the car phone.
Why are you dating us?
But I'm just saying, my child is of the TikTok era, at 10 years old, of the Fortnite era, but I am from the car phone era. And that's only one generation. It's only me and then my child. So I hate to, whatever. I'm not even 40 yet.
Generation X good, is so damaged.
Fine.
We all, wait. Hey.
Okay. Eric looks good too.
But wait, this is the thing. Hold on, wait, time out. These folks aging differently. These younger cats. I'm sorry. All right, come back. All right, go ahead. Come on.
So, like I was saying.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The bottom line is we have to stop absorbing historical ways of training up a child that are non-biblical, because I'm not touching that. I agree. I follow the word. I understand. But these historical ways we've parented kids when it wasn't even internet.
Yeah.
It's a different way. It's a different way. And so that is also traumatic in your parenting because you are frozen in time, right? And so a trauma response is also not to progress with the times and to inappropriately attach to the times in which you can control.
Yeah.
So that's also a subtle way of parenting from trauma by resisting change and the progression of the society.
When we look at the foundational aspect of parenting, there are some tough things that are part of that.
Yeah.
But I think far too often we throw everything that is tough and uncomfortable to our child or even to us in the trauma bucket.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
So based on their reactions to it, though.
Rules.
Yeah, rules
standards,
are not traumatic.
Expectations.
And
so,
this is good.
But no, for real. Yeah, so when we look at a level of discomfort for our offspring, and I'm speaking from the possibly how the offspring is reacting rather than me as a parent. I'll talk about that later on. But everything that is uncomfortable to your child is not trauma.
No.
Let's be real.
It's growth.
You have to do homework. You got to get some sleep. You have to eat well, right?
You have to follow expectations. If we don't like the school to prison pipeline situation, you still got to follow expectations in the school, period.
But we have free range parenting. We have a lot of different things going on. I don't understand how everything that is uncomfortable or a level of discomfort is providing an opportunity to be uncomfortable for our kids. And that's the part I don't get.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I agree.
You're not.
No. Okay. What do you want me to expand upon?
No,
okay.
I don't want you to expand upon.
Okay. No, I got it. Here's the thing. Because of how our children react to discomfort and the buzzword of trauma, the miseducation, the empowerment of non-clinical opinionated minds, right? We're missing the concept of growth also gives a reaction of discomfort that looks the same as a reaction of trauma.
You have never learned anything comfortable.
No.
So,
and who wants to follow rules under the age of 16?
But no, for real.
I was acting traumatic when my grandma wouldn't let me be in later, then the street lights was on.
Did you fall out?
All these other kids with parents who was at work was kicking it. And I'm like, this is traumatic for me because I feel ostracized from my peers, right? Just giving an example of 1997 Stephanie, right?
I got you.
I was tripping, but had my grandma not known, look, at the end of the day, no. Right.
And that word no, far too many parents believe that is something that shouldn't. Okay.
I was crying, but she didn't care, right? She didn't, and I had childhood trauma, but she did not remove my limitations because of my actual trauma. She empowered me and also set limits so that I wouldn't be a fast, quote unquote, a fast little girl, right?
Can we talk about that on the other side?
Go to commercial.
No.
It's commercial. It's commercial.
I'm gonna need you to quit downing the commercials up in here.
No, I'm not downing. They pay the bills. We gotta pay the bills.
Let's take a quick break. But what I do want you to come back to is that concept of fast, and then that understanding of no. And then I'm gonna get the chance to talk about toxicity. So now what?
Okay, the other T.
You had your chance with trauma.
Okay.
So we're gonna take a quick break. This is Unapologetically Strong on WOVU 95.9 FM. OVU, Unapologetically Strong, 95.9 FM. All right, so you got a chance to talk about trauma. You feel okay?
I feel worried about your transition into toxicity. I just want people to know. I guess I want to debunk these preconceived notions about toxicity. Yeah. Toxicity is not a statement of judgment. It is just a lane. It is just a lane either that can cause harm, that is loaded with harmful particles, aka behaviors, concepts, thoughts, speaking points, whatever, that can impact someone's development. So I just want to level set so that folks are not like, that don't mean I'm toxic. Because it may be some examples that are offensive, and our intention is not to label to harm.
Definitely.
It is to debunk this social media frenzy around toxicity, but also empower people to just make changes that will help restore the upcoming generations. That's how I just want to open it up, and you can do your thing.
No, it's not. It's not. This is the weird part. There are some avenues in our life where things must die or become toxic or necrotic to the body in order for something to live.
Yeah, like cancer cells.
So I get it, and I understand exactly what you're saying. What I would like to add to that is this: there is a toxic behavior to parenting that I think that is not actually being talked about. So in other words,
one specifically that you want to focus on?
No, not one specifically. Okay. I think. All right, so I'm a redirect. And I'm gonna come back to that because I do want to do a little bit more uplifting while also, jumping on this concept that there's a cost to an individual being raised by a narcissistic or a problematic personality individual. For example, what?
Go.
No. For example, what? This is a clinical show.
I got it.
I'm a clinical individual. So I have never actually diagnosed any of my parents. They are exactly who they are. With that said, they have some traits that I knew the moment that I became a father that I had to let go.
Yeah.
And I had to actually be honest about it. There was not too long ago, there's a pattern that one of my parents have gone through. And instead of that parent actually talking to me about a problem, they would take it out on my kids. And it happened 3 times, right? The first time, right, it happened 3 times. And so in doing so, I had to actually cut this parent off.
No.
Yeah. And simply because an individual is your parent doesn't necessarily mean they need holistic access to you. So with that said, so I know that my parents have some trauma traits that trickle down in the toxicity or the killing of our relationship. With that said, because
it's unresolved.
Yes. I took that killing or that sickness within our relationship and I worked on me to be a better father. So when I'm talking about, there you go. When I'm talking about toxicity, I'm also talking about an individual's ability to recognize what's toxic within their life.
Oh, yes. Accountability, self-reflection, acceptance.
Right. And so when we do that, I think we take that dead relationship or we take that dying relationship and you create something different and you create something and it gives you the permission to create something for you. Now, I'm not a perfect parent, right? I got my son in here. He's the middle.
I was about to say, you need a mic over there.
No, we're not going to. There's a lot of stuff, that he endured that the other kids didn't endure. Mm-hmm. Now, what I attempted to do was be fair across the board, without realizing he has a different personality than my first one and my last one. And so I took that problematic relationship that I viewed as toxic with my parents and did something different with it. Yeah. So that's what I mean.
I appreciate that. And so I think that's you in some ways breaking a generational curse, right?
Yes.
Because I want to tie all of these things to these terms that get thrown around so loosely without context of the amount of work that it actually takes to do it and the amount of boundaries and the amount of isolation, And so, I commend you for those boundaries because I do think that in order to preserve the next generation, we cannot allow certain repetition. And so while I would hope that there is restoration in the future with, God's will, for those relationships with your parents, I understand the urgency to cut the cord from that toxicity breathing into the next generation. I also think when we do those things, it's so important to kind of educate our kids too on like the do's and don'ts of certain dynamics, despite it being family, I think that it's okay to love family and embrace family. And I wouldn't want to betray family or reject them. But I also do not think that equals accepting ongoing harm. Yeah. I don't think that equals accepting passing on certain tendencies for the sake of family cohesion, quote unquote, because that is not healthy. You take what is healthy, you filter out what is not. And in the Black community, sometimes that really means being alone and being the first to do a lot of things. And that can feel isolating. I think in my family, there's a lot of things that I just I never wanted my son to rehearse or have any kind of visibility to before he had an understanding from me.
Yeah. So I got 2 points on that. And the second one is going to be about a client. The first one is more about this idea. I think our generation is the first generation to actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I think it's became more to actually look at the family trauma and the family, concepts that are passed down, whether we're talking about incest, whether we're talking about, abuse, whether we're talking about neglect. I think our generation.
Are we the same generation? No kidding. Y'all should have saw him. He was about to slit my throat, it seems. Okay.
I'm going to cut your mic off.
Love.
I think we are the first ones to actually allow ourselves to cut off certain things.
Because we had the language and the education. I think we're the first to have the actual language and education. Because if you think about the research, especially on Black families, the oldest articles I was reading that actually had quality research were like late 80s, 90s.
I was going to say that. So like early
we were
90s.
Kids and they were researching to be able to have the language and the data for us to access and do something about it. And not even all of us, because let's be clear. Let's be clear. A lot of our generation, unless you are a clinician, unless you have an interest in it, unless you're in treatment, they still doing the same old.
How much do you think had because the crack epidemic and the drug epidemic, like we saw trauma, in our families, right? So, the incest and all that was pretty But when an individual struggled with substance use outwardly, and the crack epidemic is the only one that is most like recent or that was in, down during
AIDS.
that, right, in AIDS. Do you think seeing it was something that allowed us to be like, oh no, we're not going to perpetuate this?
I don't think all of us, though.
You don't think so?
No, I think it all goes back to how people respond to trauma. So there are some that respond to trauma and want to create change. And so trauma activates them.
I can see
Those are the fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Yeah.
So I think us who saw and had access and visibility were the fighters that were like, oh no, we gotta work against the grain. Yeah. And I think the people who are the ones who fled, right, were more so avoidant of it. If they saw it, they withdrew, they were avoidant. And those who froze, I think knew it, saw it, but were just paused and like, well, this is family and this is love. And how am I gonna do it on my own?
I don't even like that.
But I'm just saying, if you think about trauma responses, flight, fight, or freeze, that still was present in how we responded to generational traumas.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you bring it to the present about even how folks are responding to the pandemic, right? Or to the health crisis with heart disease, diabetes, cancer running rapid, and everything being traced back down to diet, but they still porking it up like on a daily basis. Because that's what grandmama was making.
Why are you jumping on people's...
I'm not judging it, but I'm saying this still is happening now where we're not saying, hey, you know what?
I'm messing.
Wait, why are we still eating that so much when you know you've been to like 10 funerals with the same issues for the last 5 years, right? And if you break it down, it all comes down to diet, right?
Yeah.
That is it's still happening. So it's not about a judgment of, well, why people aren't doing something about it or creating the change or why they're just allowing it to happen. I think they're frozen or they're fleeing. Yeah. And we want to activate the fighters.
Yes.
I know that was a mouthful, but it's the truth. It's all these lanes.
Yeah. You do want to activate the fighters, but I believe that the fighters need some training.
Oh,
but hold on. Let's go to the second.
Yeah, we need another commercial before I go into that.
Right. So what I do want to do is go into the second point that I had. One of the most interesting clients that I have is an individual who struggles with family issues. And the family has been for, this individual's existence, treated this individual as second and second class and all this other good stuff. And one of the things that I work with this individual with is stop taking the bait, right? And this individual struggles with the idea that just because that person is your family, it doesn't mean A, B, and C. For example, this individual doesn't get along with the siblings, right?
Yeah.
And so anytime the parent figure says something about the siblings, this individual otherizes the sibling. And what I work on this client with is you have to accept that this is your sibling. You don't have to accept what comes with it. Because the more that you otherize an individual, the more that you're actually, further traumatizing yourself and not healing.
Break down otherize.
Otherize is literally just separating yourself from an entity or a body that you exist, right? So
healthy attachment?
Sometimes.
Yes. So creating a healthy attachment?
Yeah, creating a healthy attachment, but it also can go the opposite way.
Okay.
To where you don't recognize that simply because you are otherizing those individuals, that doesn't necessarily mean you're on the track of healing. And so this person,
could be toxic too.
Right.
It just go
because this person was otherizing without actually realizing that just because you're doing this, you're still them.
Yes.
You're still them, but they don't have to have access to you. So let's do a break.
Beautiful.
Let's do a break, and we're going to make this one slower. Slower. I meant shorter. We're going to make this one shorter, and then we're going to come back right on the other side. This is Unapologetically Strong on 95.9 FM. Thank you guys for holding on the line. Wait, we don't have nobody that calls in. We don't have no call. We don't have a call-in show. Why you look like that?
Because I was just confused about that Freudian slip.
Yeah. Welcome back. Unapologetically Strong. Because I got to remember every now and again. So we were talking about the concept of toxicity, withdrawing, creating healthy boundaries. So let's land the ship on this one. Because I think we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's land the ship. So when we're talking about trauma-informed parenting, all right?
Ooh.
Right. When we talk about trauma-informed parenting, it's an approach to raising children that acknowledges and addresses the potential effects of past trauma experiences in childhood development, behavior, and emotional wellness. This is a parenting style particular relevant for children who have experienced trauma or adverse child experiences. Now, when I review or look over that, a lot of that has to do with how the child is presenting. Mm-hmm. The interesting part is it does nothing for the child. That's for the parent that has a child that is experiencing this, right?
Right.
So if you have a child and they have experienced a trauma, then this would, this modality, so to speak, would work for them. Would work for you.
Yeah.
A lot of times what we're talking about is the parent is the traumatizer.
Or is the person who has been traumatized. Right. So if they're the person who's traumatizing, most likely they have been traumatized themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So let's break
showing up in their parenting.
Let's break it up into 3 parts.
Okay.
So let's start with the parents. So, we're about to land this ship so that we can, go about our life after the show. First, let's start with the parents. Let's start with the parents.
Yeah.
If you're an individual that is struggling with trauma or you recognize trauma, the first thing that I need for you to do is just simply allow yourself to be serviced. And when I say it in that manner, whether we're talking about church, whether we're talking about friendships, whether we're talking about formal counseling, if you recognize that the way that you may be doing things may not be the best, first thing, allow yourself to be parented or assisted. Let's go from there.
Yes. So accept that something is wrong, that is creating an outcome you do not desire.
Exactly.
And seek support.
Exactly. Second thing I want you to do is stop So a lot of times when we do these things, we look at it from a fix.
Yeah.
And you cannot fix anything without first acknowledging. So that's one. Secondly, stopping and brainstorming on what to do. So the second thing I want you to do is stop. And the third thing, and I'm gonna give it over to you. The third thing that I would like for you to do is just accept that where you are an imperfect being in an imperfect world, you've birthed an imperfect person, which means that you are also born, from imperfect people.
Yeah.
So there's no shame, guilt, or anything. So one is acknowledge. Second is stop. And third is forgiveness.
Self-forgiveness.
Yep. What's yours? I
love that. So for parents who are parenting from their own trauma, things I would suggest is number one, pray. Mm-hmm. Really tap into your spirituality and know that all of this is above you. Mm-hmm. It is all above you. So pray on it. The second thing, I would agree with Eric, seek help. Mm-hmm. Counseling services are not just when there is a crisis.
Right.
Counseling, and Eric, you can correct me if you disagree, mm-hmm. Counseling is more effective as a preemptive measurement. So it's like, I never got a physical until my foot starts swollen and I got diabetes and now it's amputated, right? Like, no. Just you exist as a parent. Mm-hmm. There's trauma and epigenetics dating since the beginning of time, right? So get counseling even at pregnancy, go to counseling, talk about what your parenting goals are, talk about what your vision is as a parent, get ahead of it. So again, going back, number one, pray on it. Mm-hmm. Number two, seek help in advance as guidance. Number three, have an aligned village that you respect and honor, that is not afraid to call you out on your stuff.
Man, say that again.
That is not afraid to call you out on your stuff. An aligned, safe, respected village. Okay. Because it takes a village. And I'm talking about, this doesn't have to be biological family, because village is not always biological family. You got that right. And in our generation, where we are breaking from habitual trauma that we've passed along, you probably are choosing a village at this point from your healed mind. So bring those people involved around your children. Yeah. Bring them around your children so that they can also reinforce this change you're pressing upon the next generation. So number one, pray. Number two, seek support in advance, knowing that parenting is a life-changing event. Motherhood, fatherhood, life-changing, go to therapy. Yeah. Number three, safe, healthy, respected village, involve them in that.
And even if you call it a community, because we do this all the time, we play semantics with things. Yeah, it's all the same.
Community, village, family, chosen family.
Take your pick.
Take your verbiage.
Right. So now we spoke about the parents. So let's talk about the children. So if you are an individual who was parented from a level of trauma, first thing that I would like for you to do is be okay with naming it. Whether, there's so often where there are certain aspects of being parented that you think is normal, right? You think things are normal. So be okay with naming the abnormal aspect, whether it was whether it was over punishing, whether it was neglect, whether it was emotional withdrawal. Be okay with naming it. Yeah. Second thing is be okay with somebody telling you that you are relating similar to some of the individuals that you say were problematic in your past.
Call out.
Right. Because if we're raised by individuals that are problematic, you're going to have problematic tendencies.
Oh, yeah.
So secondly, be okay with being told. So one is name. Second is okay being told, like, yo, you giving off A, B, and C vibes. Mm-hmm. Thirdly, of an individual who is parented, or the child, do not create a list of nots. Go into, if you choose to have a child, go into parenting without your list of what you're going to do differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree with all of those.
All of them?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you run them back again? I heard the knots. Don't have a lot of knots.
So
be called out.
So
what's the first one? I forgot the first one.
So the first one is being identify what it is, being okay talking about it.
Okay, yeah.
Then the second one, you made me forget that quick.
No, the second one is letting people call you out.
Letting people call you out, and the third one is don't create a list of knots.
Yeah, I think I would agree with all of those. I'm gonna have to say pray again.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always gonna bring that into it. Definitely pray as number one. Number two, I would agree with being called out. So to me, that kind of fits in being open-minded.
Yes.
And I'm not talking open where you're compromising your values and principles, but being open, knowing that we're forever evolving as humans. The human race is forever evolving, and that we have to be open in order to keep up with that pace.
Yes.
In order to be able to have discernment about what we want to push within our children and what we want to pull them away from. So be open. And the third, I would say, be consistent, right? Like just whichever lane you're going to pick as far as village, as far as flexibility, be consistent. Don't switch it up. Don't switch it up in a way that only serves you.
Right.
If we're switching it up, that means we're switching it up in a way that serves the progression of our children.
Yeah. So
it's not about you.
And that brings us to our last point, and we got to do this one quickly. If you are going to be within the village of an individual raising someone, let go of your safe space for a moment, right? Next, allow difficult conversations. And third, understand that you have a place, meaning you're not that child's A, B, and C. You're that child's village. So we got to roll. This
is great.
We got to roll. You got anything in 10 seconds you wanted to say? Psychology Today. Search us up when you need support. And there are parenting groups. So many resources. Don't be afraid. All right. Well, thank you again for being here, Steph. And I'll see you next month. This is Unapologetically Strong on 95.9 FM. Peace.